In the name of God, the gracious, the merciful, we give him praise and thanks for his mercy and his goodness to the human family. If all the trees upon the earth were pens to write with, and if all the oceans were ink, and then another 7 oceans add to its supply, the writing would still not be enough to explain the glory of God, for he's the exalted, all-powerful, all-wise. We confide in no other in our time of need, and we praise no other in our good fortune. He is one. And even if I lived to be 1,000, it would still not be enough to thank God for his many blessings and gifts. So this is Brother Sharif with the Hour of Power. Go to Hour of Power, Sharif Hameed on YouTube. Subscribe and share the channel so we can continue to lift the mind, body, and soul of our people. Before we get into this much needed and anticipated interview with these two beautiful queens, a couple community announcements. October the 6th is the funeral of our young brother who lost his life there on Princess Street. You can look on the Movement's page and our brother Fred Walker's page to get details for his funeral, because I don't want to give out any information because the date was switched. The Petals for Peace will be moved for those who are going to participate in that. It was going to be October the 6th, but since the young brother's funeral is on October the 6th, they moved everything to October the 7th. So for those who want to do the bike ride, meet at Rev Stadium at 11 a.m. with our brother Brant Kinsley, and they will circle the city with the bikes. And he's providing bikes for the youth. God bless that brother. For those who want to participate in the walk, meet at the CVS at the bottom of the hill on the corner of Princess Street and Richland Avenue at the same time, 11 a.m. And they will walk the street with the street soldiers, and they will go up to Princess Street where the incident took place. On October the 8th, the day that most youth will be off of school, the Black Love Movement and the Hour of Power, we're calling on youth in the community to meet at Penn Park at 12 p.m. We are going to educate the youth about Columbus Day, about how he's not a nice fellow. Lucky we're on TV, or I would really tell it like it is, but we're going to be nice. But we're going to educate the youth. They have been misinformed about this supposed holiday for way too long, so we're going to inform them about what this holiday is about. But it's going to be a family reunion. So meet at Penn Park, 12 p.m. on October the 8th, the day that the youth will be off. If you want to bring some snacks or whatever, bring it. And that's 12 p.m. October the 8th at Penn Park. Thank you for that. So now, with no further ado, I'm going to let the ladies here talk about their programs on October the 6th and October the 13th. So, Takia and Sister Shahida, introduce yourselves, please.
I'm Shahida Muhammad, a.k.a. Sharif's mother, second mother. I've lived in York for about 40 years, a little bit more than that. Originally from Philadelphia. My background is counseling. I've counseled in Access York, worked for the largest domestic violence law firm in Philadelphia, counseled in high schools from Central to Youthville Charter School to the William Penn High School here in the city. But I think my greatest accomplishment is my love of God and my love of my family and my community. And I would like to give my salutations of Assalamu Alaikum to everyone, salutations of peace, which is so desperately needed right now in this time. We're just totally in disarray. And without peace, it's only going to get worse.
Thank you. Sister Takia.
Good evening. I am Sister Takia Hameed. I am Sharif's wife. 21 years?
Mm-hmm.
21 years. We've been together for 21 years. I am not an official counselor. I don't have any educational training in counseling and therapy, but I am a life coach. I am also a mentor. I have Love Ministries, which is an organization I started in North Carolina. It stands for Ladies Unique and Virtuous. And I started it to help me accept my uniqueness and walk in my own uniqueness, and would love to help other young ladies walk in that as well. I also have a mentor program that I would like to bring to York. I started in North Carolina. It's called the Lady Circle, and it's for young girls ages 8 through 18. Lady stands for loving and developing yourself, and it's to help mentor them into becoming young ladies, to always love themselves, to always develop, because that's something that we seem to think that once we hit 18 or once we hit 21, we stop. And unfortunately, that's not the truth. So we're supposed to seek knowledge from cradle to grave. And I'm also an ordained minister. I'm an ordained minister. I was ordained in North Carolina under the leadership of Reverend Richard Scott McMillan at Markham Chapel. And now that I'm back here in York, I will be back at Bethlehem Baptist Church with Reverend Aaron Wilford.
Okay. And tonight's topic is the value of a woman. That's the topic. And the Hour Power and the Black Love Movement, we are dedicating October to make it Women's Month. So we're going to be touching on a variety of topics this month, some serious topics, domestic violence, sexual assault, to honor, women and to uplift them and give them their rightful place. But tonight we will talk about the value of a woman, and I couldn't think of two better women to speak on that topic, and they just gave their credentials and background in that. But before we get into that, this seems to be a reoccurring question I've been asking the guests. Omi, you want to tell how I used to come to your house back in the day?
Absolutely. This is a story to tell. Sharif is very close to my only son, Abdul Malik, and he was one of many young men who, they all seem to be single guys, like with no sisters or brothers. And for some odd reason, Sharif I think he got close with us probably because of the food at first. But we noticed that Sharif would always knock on the door exactly at the time when we were going to eat dinner. We didn't know if he was across the street watching or he had some kind of mechanism that he knew the food was done. But we hear this light tap, and well, who's that knocking on the door? It's Sharif. What does he want? Oh, just have him come in. He come in, oh, dinner's ready. He started coming so regularly until we just didn't even ask. He would just come and wash his hand and sit down to eat. But then we realized later on there was other homes that he was doing other things. Like he would do a house for a movie and a house for a sleepover, but he had other houses in the community. So he started off as a community. See, so this is probably just his growth from all the connections. But my connection with him first was his relationship with my son, and then the relationship with the food.
Right. Yes, my good brother Abdul. I mean, it's just just looking out for the community. Make sure Mr. Kirkland was all right around the corner, and get some books. And Miss Harris, she had her on last week. I would take my wasn't a book bag; it was a suitcase, but she was okay with it. And come there for nourishment and knowledge. So
So you were making sure they were okay. They weren't making sure you were okay.
A little, a little bit of both. Just making sure the community was okay, and Sister Takia, you want to tell your version of how we met?
Not my version, the truth, sir.
Okay.
So Sharif and I, don't let him fool you, actually met at a nightclub. We met at a nightclub, and he was out with Abdul and the rest of the crew. And I was with my cousin. And every time I would turn around, he was staring at me. And I kept asking my cousin, why is he in my face? And I had just got back from Florida. Next thing I know, he just walks up behind me and stands there while I'm dancing. He don't ask me to dance or nothing. He just walks up and he just stands there. And that's how we met. And we went on a date. He came to my mom's house a few days later and we watched the movie. And he said, I'm going to make you a nice, quiet Muslim wife. Well, he did the wife part. Quiet part didn't. I think he's still trying to work on that. I don't think he's succeeded yet with the quiet part. So.
All right. Well, with stories, you always have one story, the other story, then the truth.
That was the truth.
So here's the truth. I was relaxing in my place that night, and I heard a voice, and the voice said, "Go out in the community to wake people up." So I said, "Okay." So somehow I ended up at the Paradox because there was a lot of people there, and the voice said, "Don't be judgmental of the, where you go. Just reach the people." So I went to the door, following the voice, and I said, "What's going on here?" They said, "Well, people are in there dancing and, doing other things." So I said, "Well, I'm not going to be judgmental. I just want to reach the people." So I walked in there, and I knew I had a message, and I felt someone staring at me. I said, boom, that's the person I'm supposed to reach. So I went over there, and I really don't know what happened after that. I think I did my mission of reaching someone, and 21 years later, Najee, Naeem, and Jordan. That's all I remember. So that's really the truth. So anyway, we could go back and forth with that. That's my version. I know it's the truth. I know it's the truth. That voice said, "Go reach someone," and when I went in there, I felt someone staring at me, and it was you.
Abdul and Terrence and Kevin.
I don't remember them. I don't recall that. I just recall the voice saying, "Go reach someone," and you were staring at me, and I went across the room. I don't really remember what you're doing, and here we are married. So
okay. So tonight we're talking about the value of the woman.
The value of the woman.
Okay.
Omi,
Yes.
since you are the elder, what knowledge do you have? Because a lot of, like you said, young ladies are searching, for a lot of guidance. I think we can all agree that a lot of our young ladies, like I said in my message the other day, wear your crown. Wear your crown, know your place. And I gave a lot of historical information.
Mm-hmm.
So what can you share with us to give our sisters out there watching some guidance on knowing their value?
Value is, when I looked up the word value, the first word in the dictionary said worth. And I think that what has happened is that for some reason we are considering ourselves to be worthless. And when you're worthless, you become nothing more than trash, which needs to be discarded and thrown away. And so what happens is with young women, especially young women who feel that they are worthless, they have no value, so they try to attach something to them, like maybe how they embellish their bodies or embellish their hair or some other thing on the outside, and they never really pay any attention to the inside. And so when it's time for someone to approach them, they can approach them with nothing more than a basket of garbage, which to them, who they think that they're worthless, think that what they're giving them is of some value. And every time they do that, all they're doing is compounding garbage, garbage, garbage. But the way to do that, to rid yourself of that, is to simply understand that your worth and value is based on what you do to invest in yourself. In yourself. No abuser ever comes to you with the abusive behavior first.
Right.
It's always the opposite. They come in, they pull you in, they charm you, they wine and dine you, and they really don't have to spend a lot on you. They really don't, because you already think you're worthless. So I can give you a couple of dollars, take you to McDonald's, take you to Penn Park. I'll never take you to a nice restaurant with a menu. We just look at a number and say number 1, number 2, and our food. No one brings it to us. We just get it from the counter. But anybody can do that. But when you read, you order what you want, they bring it to you because the food is of some value, which means the more value you invest in yourself, everything around you becomes of value. From my experience, I've seen things from women being 7, 8 months pregnant and kicked out of a car on an expressway while the car is moving. I've had experiences of seeing one woman one day and the next day she's dead. She told me exactly how she would probably die, and she died a horrible death. I have experience of my own sister being shot by her husband and paralyzed, and now today, over 25 years, is living on a life support. So I know personally what it is. I come from a domestic violence background, but I vowed that I would never, ever expose my children to such a lifestyle. So for young women, my message is to you that as long as you continue to, I would consider it to be, put yourself in a situation where you're dousing almost like debris, and all somebody has to do is ignite it, and you are set ablaze, because you are doing nothing more than destroying yourself. Do the opposite. Stop talking to your children with vulgar, nasty, lowly language. Stop going outside looking as if you just got out the bed with a comb in your hair and your hair's not combed. You look like you're detached. You're frayed up. You know, you need to stop and think about what I'm doing. Am I investing anything into these children that I myself need to acquire? And that's exactly what I did. I did the opposite of what was done to me in my life in terms of my parents and their violence and their alcoholism. Good people, but didn't value themselves. So I would say after so many years of working in the field of domestic violence, I've seen it all. There's almost nothing that I haven't seen. But there's also men. Young men tend to be abusive because young men have devalued themselves and their worth as well. But they can posture because of their physique. They can posture and talk a good game, I'm the man, I'm this, and beat their chests. But beating your chest doesn't make you a man. It's what you do, it's how you carry yourself, is your contribution to the society. And don't ever think when someone says what I do doesn't have an impact on someone else, that's not true. We have been created to be social beings. What I do will have a direct effect on Takia, Sharif, and everyone else in my immediate presence. So I would think if I had a word to give to young women, it's to value yourself. Give yourself some worth. Don't keep on attaching things to yourself. You know, you can put beautiful things on a snake. It's still a snake nonetheless. It's going to just continue to go on its, no legs, just on its belly, because that's exactly what it is. That's what it's been created to do. We're human beings. We need to rise above. We're the only creatures by the Creator that has a consciousness to arrive from a low state to a high state. We're the only creatures that can do that. The only human beings.
That's a mouthful, and I think the main thing that stuck out to me is when you started your comments on that by saying it looks good in the beginning. And I did a message last night, and I gave the 12 warning signs of being in an abusive relationship, just from my experience of being, a counselor and a therapist. So know those warning signs. It's no different than driving down the road on your journey. It gives you signs. It says slippery road, road work ahead. It gives you the signs. Now, if you drive into that danger, you didn't listen to the signs. Sister Takia, from your experience of working with young ladies and some experiences that you have, what insight can you give young ladies out here? We actually have young ladies in the audience here, and thank y'all young ladies for coming and supporting these queens. What insight can you give us from your experience?
Simply put, eat the fish and throw away bones. Eat the fish and throw away the bones. People are going to pour into you what they think you're worth. And normally, we live what we learn, and we learn what we live. So if we grow up in an abusive family and seeing the violence, or our mother's talking derogatory to us, or her husband or your father or whomever being derogatory and abusive to her, we think that's normal. And then we take on that behavior and we go and we live that life. Once we become adults, we end up rearing our children that same way. One of the things that Umi said that I too have done, Sharif, you can attest to it, I tried to be the exact opposite of what I grew up in. Love my mom to death, but that lady is loud all the time, just to be loud. And I'm loud. I know that I'm a loud person. But first thing in the morning, the last thing I do is yell at the boys. I do not like it. Sharif used to lay in the bed and tell them, boys, it's time to get up. And I'm like, why are you yelling? Just go in the room. Hey, get up. Start your morning, because how you start out is how you finish. And that's another thing that I would love to pour into young ladies. How you start it how you want it to end. He's going to give you signs. In the beginning, it's going to be peaches and cream, honey. The honeymoon is lovely, I can tell you. But he will always give you signs like, why you got to talk to your friend on the phone today? Why you got to talk to your friend every day on the phone? I don't want you going out with them today. Why can't you just stay home with me? Tell your job you need to take off today because I need you home with me. He'll start doing little small things, and you will think it's cute in the beginning, like, oh, he's just loving me. He's plotting and he's playing a game. And if we don't love ourselves, we fall easily into that trap. And you have to love yourself. That's one of the reasons that, you and I talked about that. Starting the lady circle, loving and developing yourself, is because you have to love you first. And you have to make you a priority. Pour into you what it is that you want. So, and then invest in you. Because if you don't invest in you, no one else will. So, I am huge on mental health. If you need counseling for whatever traumatic experiences you received in your childhood, go get it. There's nothing wrong with it. Us in the Black community are quick to say, I ain't talking to nobody. Unfortunately, we need to. That doesn't mean you need psychotropic drugs. That doesn't mean you will be in therapy for the rest of your life. But there may be something that you need help getting over and getting past, and it will take a professional to help you do that. So that's where I would start.
Mm-hmm. And Omi, you were at, and this is a number that I want to give out, because we just don't talk about things and then don't give people resources. Before I ask you this question about your experience, for anyone out there who may need help, the Hour of Power gives resources. We're here for you. We have Access York, 1-800-262-8444, and then the local number is 717-846-5400. The national hotline for domestic violence is 1-800-799-7233. And for those of our sisters who say, well, those places don't relate to me, I'm African American, I'm Latino, there's people there that can't relate to me. Well, I've been in contact with a place out of St. Paul, Minnesota. It's called the Institute for Domestic Violence for African American Community. 877-643-8222. That's specifically for African American women. Naomi, you were a counselor at Access York, right?
Yes.
Can you tell us about your experience there and what you experienced with the women there, and how you can use that experience to relate to thousands of women just in York who's going through this and see no way out? What can you share with that?
I started out as a volunteer. I talked to my husband Salim with our 4 children, and I said to him one day, I need to do something in the community. And we lived right up the street from Access, and I needed to go to Access to see if I could just be a volunteer, just to talk to the women, maybe help them if I could, just anything. And it wound up being an experience that helped me, that just spiraled me into, just flung me into counseling. So much so that I became so proficient until my class started at 30 people in one session, and it moved to 60 people, and the building was crowded with people, so they had to start backing up some. I did that for a few years, and then they decided to open up the first transitional housing for women, and I was the second in charge of that. And then I started going to the court system as the first Muslim woman for the transitional housing, and as well as for the court system, to fight for the rights of women. And that was my job. I got threatened. People would come to my house. Men would come to my house looking for me. My children would get frantic. My husband would have to talk to them. And from that, I wound up giving a presentation at a conference, and that spiraled me over to Philadelphia, which I'm originally from. My husband didn't have a job at the time, and women got to learn. You got to learn what you're good at. You got to learn something about yourself, because you might be responsible to maintain your husband and your children if your husband can't do that, because you're a unit. When one part of that union gets weak, the whole body suffers. Like with a headache. You have a headache, the whole body suffers. You don't want to do anything. You don't want to talk to anybody. So I wound up giving this presentation, and all these cards start coming to me. And finally, someone gave me a card, and she was an attorney from Women Against Abuse, which was the largest legal center in Philadelphia for abused people. And when my husband lost his job, I said, my family's there. I can stay with my sister. I need to go and get interviewed. And they interviewed me, and there I was. But the miraculous thing is that your intentions have to be pure intentions, and my intentions was to help people. I wound up being a paralegal and got offered a job as a director. I only have a high school diploma. I'm self-taught. Nobody knew that. They didn't need to know that. I was capable of doing the job because I invested in me. That's what I did. I invested in me, and the people who did have the paper, the person that was there that had all the documentation that they needed, when that attorney came to me and said, you now no longer have to come to me to check your protection from abuse orders. Your protection of abuse orders will be typed up and sent to judges. That's what you do. And that's how I actually started. I started by volunteering. Volunteering is a job. If you're a mother at home, a young mother, and your babies are in school, that's the time you should find some place, somewhere, that you can volunteer to help someone. When it's time for you to look for a paying job, you use that experience. If the agency doesn't hire you because you're already trained, you use that experience and you take it to put it on the resume and you present it. So I never started like most people at the bottom and work your way up. I started at the top, and the top was I helped start this program, had a secretary, had workers who worked for me to get the building shaped up and, prepared for new moms to come with their children. So I took a different route. Women who don't have college education does not mean that you cannot be educated.
Absolutely.
You have to be self-educated. You have to have the desire to want to learn, and you start off small. And the way you start off small is a desire. Desire is almost like a bucket that can hold the water of your ambition. Every human being has ambition, be it good or bad. A dope dealer who wants to sell dope, he's ambitious. He's on that corner, he's flinging them drugs, running from the cops, hiding, doing whatever underhanded thing he's doing. But he fails to realize that the properties and the behaviors that you're using, if you were just to reverse those, see, that's why I said change. Learn to do the opposite of what you're doing that's not beneficial for you. And that's how I got into domestic violence, and from there it just grew. The only problem that I had in a small town like York, because I asked in Philadelphia, how are you going to pay me? I don't have a degree. We pay you for the job. You're doing the job. You got to get paid for what you do. So don't let anybody tell you that because you don't have a degree. When people hire you, they use the degree to stop you from getting what you deserve. That's abusive. That's abusive.
That's a mouthful. We're getting a lot of comments and some onlookers saying that they definitely want to meet both of you. So I already see we're going to have to set up another forum to do this again. Takia, I don't think you mind mentioning this, but what we want to do is empower our young people and our young women so we don't start a cycle of abuse and have to try to pull them out. We want to get them off to a good start. One thing that impressed me about you when I first met you is when you told me about your courage of getting out of something that was abusive and the lengths that you went through to say, I'm not going to do this. Do you want to tell us about what happened in Florida and how the courage and the steps you went through and how your dad helped you to get out of that? And you said you're not going to go through this with your son then, which was Jordan.
Absolutely. So I was 19 and had just went back to Florida. I've been there probably about a year or so, and I was dating this guy, and he became very physically abusive. And the last situation I remember is he hit me in my face and bust my nose open because I took too long at a supermarket.
And excuse me, before you go any further, those signs that we were talking about, did you see them, or do you think because you were young you just didn't? Can you tell us about the signs and then pick up where you?
Retrospect, yes, but
Okay.
hindsight is 20/20. At 19, no, I didn't see those. At 19, I didn't know to look for them at 19. Now, if I sit and think about it, yeah, absolutely the signs were there. They absolutely were there. But the last situation was he hit me in my face and he busted my nose open because I took too long at the supermarket. My youngest sister, the one that we were just in Florida with, she wasn't in the same town that I was in, but she lived there. She was in Miami visiting her dad. And she was on the phone with one of her girlfriends, and her girlfriends told her that he was in the house beating me. So she and my dad's widow called the cops from Miami and sent them to the house where I was at. And they arrested him, and I got on the phone with my dad, and my dad said, you have a bus ticket waiting for you. You get on it, or I'm coming to get you, but you're leaving. And I left my apartment fully furnished, completely furnished, had just went to the supermarket, so stocked full of food. I borrowed a suitcase from my aunt's neighbor, and everything that I could get in that suitcase, I put in that suitcase, and
You
grabbed
had a
my
son, right? You
I
had
grabbed my
Jordan.
son. I grabbed
Mhm.
Jordan. He was
Mhm.
3, and we went to Miami. His friend, one of his friends, actually took me to the bus stop. He actually took me to the bus stop. The night before I left, I went to my aunt's house because I knew he wouldn't come to my aunt's house acting stupid. It's like 11 of us between my aunt's 6 and my mom's 5. It's 11 of us. I knew he wouldn't come over there acting stupid. So I grabbed Jordan. We went to my aunt's house the next morning. It was crack of dawn. His friend came and picked me up and took us to the bus station in Orlando, and I went to Miami with my dad. And I started, I lived down there for a little while and started going to Miami-Dade Community College, and then I came back up here, and that's when I met you.
Mhm. And so you didn't give it a third and a fourth
Absolutely
and a fifth.
not. Absolutely not.
Mhm.
I knew it was wrong, and although I still sometimes battle with self-esteem issues, I loved me enough to know that I didn't want that life for me and my child. So I loved me enough to get away. And I saw it growing up. I saw it growing up, and I knew the trauma of it growing up, and I did not. I didn't want that. So no, it only takes you one time before I get crazy.
Right. And going through that experience, once me and you got together, did you look at me different?
Yes.
Mhm.
I always had a raised eyebrow. I always had a side eye. Any little thing that you did had me triggered. It would trigger me in the beginning because I never knew where you were coming from, and I didn't know you enough to know that you wouldn't do that. It was a learning process, and it was a learning curve.
Mhm. And all that we've been through, have I ever hit you?
I wish you would. But no, you haven't. I'm jokingly saying it, but they got an orange jumpsuit for every size.
Are you threatening me on national TV?
No, I'm not. I'm just telling you. I say it jokingly, but no. I mean, we've had that conversation. I wouldn't stay. I wouldn't put up with it at all.
Right. Mm-hmm. Omi, coming from your experience, why do you think women stay when they see the signs? Do you think that they think it's going to get better? Do you think they're scared to be alone? We can't get into someone's head, but what do you think, where women are that go through this years after years, and then man after man, just a different man doing the same thing? What do you think from your experiences is going on there? Because we're trying to empower women on this show. We're not trying to make you feel bad, but bad enough that you don't repeat this.
Yeah, I think that, for me, I have had experience with my husband. I met my husband when I was 14 years old. So I was home, so where all the abuse was. I got engaged at 15. I married him at 19, and I'm 64 years old. So I've been with my husband for 50 years. So I'm one of those persons that came from the streets and from a home of violence to adulthood. But I know that because of my acceptance of Islam, it changed my life. It gave me focused. It gave me enough focus that I could focus enough on what I needed to do, take care of my family, and then want to do more to the family at large, which is the community. I think the reason why young women stay is because they're familiar with the violence, like Takia said.
Before an initial relationship, is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that they don't. Women's self-esteem is different than men, and you know this. In high school, the dumbest guy with the nicest sneakers on think he can get the smartest chick in the school. The smartest chick thinks she can't get nobody.
Absolutely.
I would.
She never thinks she meets the mark, and
Absolutely.
it's a mindset. And the mindset is that if a young woman comes in contact with a guy, and he tells her anything other than what she's heard, like he's not cursing at her, because you can't curse at me and then try to charm me. You're cursing me out. They don't do that. So when women stay, they stay for an array of reasons. First of all, they make babies too soon. Young women, stop making babies. Stop it. That's another responsibility. You can barely take care of yourself. All right? He talking about he want a crib. Oh, I'm going to get a crib. You ain't getting a crib for a baby. Go get me a house. Or I'm going to get me a ride. We ain't talking about no baby stroller. We talking about a car. Go get me a car. I'll be your baby. I'll be your baby. But they don't want that. You have a baby with them, and for some reason you think if I make a baby with you, now we happy. We're a family now. You're a family, but you miss one major component. You can't drive a car without car insurance.
Mm-hmm.
But you think you're going to make babies and not be married. You think you're not making no commitment. They say, well, I don't need to be married. Okay, well, keep on doing what you're doing, because the court of law won't give you what you think you need when you need them. And the most miraculous thing is that police officers never like to go to homes where the call of domestic is in. You know why? Because one of the cycles of abuse is she'll report him if there's threats, but as soon as the police come to arrest him, she steps in. She steps in. And then, of course, when a conversation gets to be violent, she can say, oh, I can get you locked up. So then she begins to be the victim perpetrator. I'm the victim, and I'm going to perpetrate the same things you do to
You
me.
mean holding a dark cloud over his head?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
never
So that's the
thought of
psyche. The
that.
psyche now is tit for tat.
Homie, I want to give this number real quick.
Yes.
Please keep that in your. If anyone wants to call in, our sister Alicia cycled a number. I mean, this is deeper than a Seth Curry jump shot.
Really, dude.
717-846-5067. 717-846-5067. If you want to call in, make any questions or comments with our two beautiful queens dropping atomic bombs on the hour of power. You can continue on, Omi. Then I want Sister Kia to chime in on this same vibe that we have going on.
Yes. So what happens is that because she doesn't want him to be arrested, because, you know, sometimes the dependency that they are in the relationship together, that she would actually step in, and police officers don't like that. So years ago when I worked in Philadelphia, they had this thing called a 2711. Because it was so common for a woman to change her mind, that the 2711 meant probable cause. That means if I come to the house and she's at the door saying, no, everything's okay, I'm fine. And they said, well, when you sit in the chair, do you normally sit in the chair that's turned over? Do you normally live in a house where somebody busts the window out of the glass out of your window? Do you normally live in a house where you take your food and you throw it across the room? Then he's arrested. Then he's arrested, or she's arrested, because women are abusive as well. So the 2711 became a very, very active order that police can then step in and say, because I see, because they knew you're going to say never mind, because I see what is happening, he's going to be arrested. But they also had something where older people who couldn't fight back or couldn't run. A woman came to me one day and she said, if I don't put my son out, I got to get my son out my house, he's abusing me. And I said, well, how long has this been going on? She said, for years, he's abusing me. He leaves for the daytime, he gets high all day, and he comes to my house at night. And I said, I can help you get him out.
I forgot to turn up this volume. Hour of power.
Hi, I wanted to comment on the hour of power.
Yes, state your name, sis.
Samia.
Oh, well, I think I know you. I used to come to your house and eat all your food. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. What you got, sis?
What I wanted to know is, of course I know Shahida Muhammad because she's my mother, but she raised 3 daughters, and I wanted to know what she thought was most important to instill in her daughters so that they don't repeat either the cycle or don't begin a cycle that will continue to repeat with their children.
Well, why don't you tell us, since I'm your mother?
Mommy!
Should have known that wasn't going to be a
Right.
easy
Why
question.
don't you
Walk
tell
right
us?
into that.
Tell the audience what you think it was in raising you guys as your mother.
Well, I can only speak from a 2-parent household.
Yes.
Because, like you said, you were with my dad, my wonderful dad, since you were 14. But one thing that I think that a lot of girls growing up that I would see is that they needed confirmation, or they needed, they looked for love and acceptance from boys that, you know, in our class or older men or whatever it was. But my dad was always there, even working multiple jobs to make sure that we were all taken care of. But he always took the time to make sure he told me how proud he was of my academic accomplishments, or how he thought I was beautiful, or how I looked nice that day, or it was always complimentary. And not saying that everything was sugar-coated. He would definitely, of course, let us know when there's areas that we fell short, or, you know, or things we need to improve on. But I I never looked for some guy in my class to tell me how great I looked or how beautiful I was, because I always had a father there that told me how wonderful I was and what my potential was and what he saw in me. And it always made me feel like I could conquer the world. I could get up every single day, going to high school or going off to college, thinking, I'm the ish, like I can do it all. I might not have accomplished it all, but I've done a lot in my years. And I owe a lot of that to, I'm going to say 90% to you and my dad.
Thank you for that, Queen. Keep listening in and keep supporting the channel, and definitely spread this message tonight, because the phone lines is lighting up. That messages are coming in, and I believe the women out there and in the audience is feeling empowered. So thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Sister Takia, then only come back to you. What do you think we can do to encourage our sisters about the family unit, like Omi was saying about marriage, and how that can lift your confidence, give you your rightful place as a queen, and prevent a lot of the, because our problems are multi-layered. It isn't just a domestic a domestic violence problem. The violence out in the streets that these young men, if they saw a family unit, what do you think, how that's impacted your life about, and as far as in, spreading that message to the sisters?
How do I think having a family unit now has impacted my life, or growing up?
Well, both. Not having that, and then having that, how do you think that can deter the violence out in the streets, give women, confidence? Because Omi talked on, how women get into these relationships, but they're not reaching their potential because they're not being put in their rightful place and being dignified. I remember you using that word a lot, being, dignified.
Absolutely.
A lot of them aren't being dignified because they're not asking or don't have a commitment.
Well, I think for a lot of women, young girls, my peer group and under, I'll say that, they don't know that they need to be dignified because they don't see it at home. They didn't see it growing up. So they either saw mama and her boyfriend, or mama by herself, or mama with a whole bunch of uncles that only came at night. So they don't know that they need to be dignified. And then to take it a step further, for my generation, if we came from single parent household, or even if mama had a husband or a man in the house, it was, you be independent. You don't let the right hand know what the left hand is doing. You always have something stashed because you never know when he gonna act stupid. So we were taught to depend on ourselves and not to depend on a man. So we got to the point where only thing we wanted a man for was for sex. That was it. We wanted them for sex because I can do everything by myself. I don't need a man. I can hang up my own. Jill Scott has it. She says that in a song. I can kill the spider myself, and I can laminate the floor, whatever she says in a song, but I don't want to. And they have to understand that you determine how a person treats you. You determine if they dignify you or not. If you want to be married, you set that standard. The phone is ringing. You set that standard and you let it be known.
Power.
Hi, I'd like to ask a question.
Yes, state your name, please. Well, looks like we lost him.
Yeah, it looks like she hung up.
Yep. Call back, please.
I think that we need to understand is we determine how we allow somebody to treat us. If we allow them to disrespect us, to cuss us out, or whatever the case, they're going to think that that is okay. So we can't then shift the rules of the game midway through the game and then expect them to fall in line, because it's just not going to work that way. I'm going to use Keisha as an example because I was teasing her, telling her that her and John need to go ahead and get married. She need to let him move in. I said, you need to let the man move in. Y'all got a baby. Go ahead, let the man move in. She was like, he can't move in with me until he marries me. So teasing her about it, she was like, no, that's my standard. I didn't intend to have a baby. That wasn't my purpose. That wasn't my intention. That's something that happened. but he can't come live with me until he's ready to make me his wife. And that's it in a nutshell. If we set those standards and we let those standards be known, and we value who we are as a woman, and we know our values, we love ourselves, then we can portray that to someone else. You and I, there are plenty of times when you'll say, well, Kia, I need you to do that. No, I'm not doing that. Sorry, I'm not going to be able to do it. And that's not me being defiant. That's not me just being this hard-nosed, independent woman. That's, I value me enough to know that, no, I'm not. You and I'm not saying that that's what you do. I'm just saying, no, this is who I am, and this is what I expect of you. And if you can't meet that mark, then so be it. And I think too many of our young women, they don't talk about expectations. They don't know what to expect from a man, so they don't go into the relationship with expectations. And if he says he loves her, she's falling over dead, and God forbid he bring them this little bubblegum ring from the bubblegum machine. Then they falling over, oh my God, he loves me, he loves me, he loves me. And he may love you, but is he capable of being a husband?
Mm.
And then once that is taken care of, then you can go into building the family unit.
I think the person's calling back. Hour of power.
I have a question for everyone in the room.
Yeah, so who's calling?
Sabria.
Hey, Sabria.
Hi, how you doing?
Assalamu alaikum, Sabria.
Walaikum salam.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, my question is, do you think women in abusive relationships stay because they are seeking a father figure?
Yes.
I do.
Everyone thinks that?
I don't think that. I think that women stay in an abusive relationship because her self-esteem is so low that what's happening to her is so low, she can stay in that situation until something gets really, really bad. Some of them make it and some of them don't. Some of them never have had a father. So they're trying to imagine what a father would be, but they could never imagine what a father could be with this guy. He's irresponsible. He doesn't understand his self-worth. And so he can easily tell her, who's going to take you. Remember now, when a person is abusing you, they will tell you all the things that will tear you down for you to stay. So even if they were looking for a father, what would be the idea of what a father is if they've never been around their fathers? They don't know.
That's a valid point.
They've been around men, and these men, remember, a lot of these men who are seeing women or seeing women long enough and checking those daughters out. And that's why you have a lot of sexual abuse among these women with their daughters. So these men, they're predators, okay? And they want to find some woman that is so pitiful that she would never, ever challenge them. And she would never challenge him, nor would she ever even decide to tell anyone because it would be such a shameful thing. So I don't think that they would be looking for a father figure. I think that they're trying to stay with a person hoping that if I stay in this long enough, I can become this man's savior and save him where all the other women couldn't.
And for me as a man, like you said earlier, Omi, about Samia had mentioned about brother Salim, who I call Abba, being in her life. The presence of a man, and I've been saying it a lot in my podcast, the presence of a man is essential for the protection of his family, because when you have that man there, he is going to instill in the daughter the difference between love and lust. He's going to love on her, so when a man comes along with lust, she's going to be able to distinguish, and he's saying, hey baby, I love you. Like, all right, my father told me he loved me, so what kind of love are you talking about? So she's not going to be intermingling lust and love, because the dad, the father was there. And it's a difference between a dad and a father. A dad is just someone who makes a baby, but a father is going to take you further, because the root word in father is further. He's going to take you further emotionally, educationally, spiritually. He's going to take you there. So that's my take on it. And salute to brother Salim, as I call Abba, for being there for you, Samia, Sadiqa, Sadia, my brother Abdul, and salute to you, brother. You the real MVP.
And Nadia.
And Nadia, yes, and Nadia. We got 10 minutes left, so hang on in there and share this message for us. We're going to try to get some more jewels in this last 10 minutes. Thank you for calling.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
So finishing out, oh boy, finishing out. What is some pointers that you can give? We'll start out with you, Takia, and move on over. What is some pointers you think can give for sisters who may be in this situation and solutions? Because we always want solutions. We can identify the problem, but what are some solutions to this? We talked about how to avoid it, but what if they're knee deep in it?
Well, they have to first admit that they're knee deep in it. I think too often they cover it up. It's not that bad, or he just had a bad day, or whatever the case may be. I think they have to first admit that they are in an abusive relationship. And I think they need to understand that it's more to abuse than just physical abuse. Just because he's not physically putting his hands on you doesn't mean that you're not being abused, because you can be abused emotionally, you can be abused spiritually, and you can be abused mentally. So they have to first acknowledge the abuse and then be serious about wanting to get out. They have to know that they want out. Or as my mom used to say, be sick and tired of being sick and tired. Once you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, then you can go ahead and make your mind up. You got a
Okay. Our power.
Hey, Brother Sharif.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm fine.
All right. What you got for us?
Oh, I must have a, I'm waiting for the kids to finish, but I have a comment to make. Hey, Brother Sharif.
Take out the echo in the background if you can.
Yeah, turn your TV down, Tazia.
My statement is now that I'm not in York and I live in a metropolitan area, I see with the younger generation, women, I'm nowhere near the TV.
Okay, it sounds okay
It's good
now.
Okay, so living in a metropolitan area, now that I'm in Baltimore, and watching my children grow up, I had many kids, young girls and young men come to my house because it's a homely type feeling. My mom always raised us to know your self-worth, and my dad always taught us expectations of a man, and that's not being taught. So when, just like Sister Shahida said, when men spend a couple of dollars, because nobody said, I'm way more than a Happy Meal, you know, they think it's okay. Oh, he bought me a pair of sneakers, and then when he beat on you or verbally abuse you, then they don't know how to take it.
And y'all want to fill in on that?
So I definitely agree with you, Tazia. One of the things that I do have to say, it boils back down to these young women not having any self-worth, any self-esteem. And that's something that I think that we have to build up in our young women. And I think that we have to get back to the village raising the children. I think that's a huge problem. Too many of us don't know our neighbors, don't want to know our neighbors, can't say anything to the neighbor's children, because then the neighbor is mad because you corrected their child for being disrespectful. But I mean, even listening to Umi and Sharif talk, they had a village, they had a community back in the day. Sharif was at everybody's house. Now everybody at our house.
Just a few. I mean,
Sharif was at everybody's house, and now everybody is at our house. I mean, Nasaya tell you, they were eating dinner yesterday, and I swear about 4 different people knocked on the door while eating dinner, to the point that Sharif looked at the boys and was like, y'all come answer this door. You know, so you have to, there has to be a safe environment for the young women to go, and the young boys, because I think part of the problem with these boys is they have this rage and they have no outlet, and they're taught not to express it. They're taught not to express themselves, so that's how they end up 17 beating on their 17-year-old girlfriend, because they don't know what else to do.
With a baby.
Right, with the baby.
Right.
Omi, you want to fill in on that? We have about 6 minutes.
Yes, Tazea, I would think that, you know, one of the ways that we who are older can help the young sisters is that we can listen to them. I mean, find out who's closest to you and be an observer first, because they're very sensitive You know, we've gotten to the point where even when we are something is happening to us that is wrong, and we actually can see that something's wrong, when you have a concern. I'll give you an example. There was a lady at the supermarket. Salim and Nadia and the kids are probably cracking up. I went to the line to wait on her, and whatever was happening with her day, she got real coy with me. Well, the lady in front of you didn't pay yet. I said, "Are you all right? Are you okay?" You know, sometimes you have to let people know, but I didn't come here to cause you any problems. It's like in the neighborhood. You see a neighbor, and you see a neighbor's kids are dirty, or their noses aren't clean, or she's not, feeding them. Every now and then, give them something. Give them a piece of fruit. Give them a banana. Give them something, because consciously, I've seen something. What we see, we can change. What we can't see, we can't change. Now, if she refuses to take it, it doesn't mean that you didn't offer. But your children see that you have invested in your neighbor. Even if the neighbor says no, deeds are judged by motives. Your motive is to help. And everybody's not going to take help, and that's okay. But one thing that you know for sure, that as long as you show your children, you have a greater chance of your children doing the same behavior than the people who are neglecting their children next door.
Absolutely.
Right. Yep.
Well, thanks for calling in, Taziah. Share this.
Thank you guys for sharing your stories, because it's helping out a lot of people.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yep. Make sure you share it, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye, Sissy.
All right. Well, winding up, we definitely know that we going to need to do a part 2 of this. Hopefully, maybe in November, maybe. It definitely. I mean, we barely scratched the surface. I mean, this is super deep.
Can I give a little bit of advice before we close?
Mm-hmm.
In terms of what women can do who are in an abusive situation.
Mm-hmm.
First thing that you do, you get copies of everything that you have. Your Social Security cards, your birth certificates, anything that you would need if you would have to get public assistance. You make those copies and you give them to someone that's safe, a neighbor, somebody in your church. You give that information to someone, but it has to be done in a way where it's in a packet, so if you ever need it, you can get to it. That's the first thing. The second thing, if you never want to go into a shelter, always call Access, the national hotline, so they can start documenting. Start taking pictures of yourself. Getting copies, and date them. Start building a paper trail, because some women do not make it out of a domestic violence situation. They die. So help yourself before you cannot help yourself, and help your children. And peace to all of you, and love yourselves.
All righty. We got 2 minutes left. I want to put out there, connected to this message, because the violence, it runs deep. It isn't just, a man to a woman or a woman to a man. It's the children. We're trying to prevent all violence in our community. So we have a fundraiser. It's on Sister Alicia's page. It's on my page. Next week, we'll be doing our first Make Me Over show, where we're going to bring 2 young men from the community, and we're going to lift their mind, body, and soul from head to toe, haircut, tie, and we're going to lift their confidence, and we're going to pour into them. And this is Sister Alicia's idea. We're just supporting her with it. So on my page and on her page, we want to do this monthly, where each month, and then eventually we want to get into it with the sisters. So donate to the page, and the money is going to the youth. We don't steal. We don't do that. So this is the Hour of Power. We'll definitely do this again. Thank you, Queens, for your input and your jewels. We leave you in peace as we came. Assalamu alaikum.